The Boy Who Wouldn't Fight. Lynchburg, Virginia, 1919. A small wooden house sat quietly on a hillside, where a young boy named Desmond Doss was about to witness something that would change his life forever. 10-year-old Desmond heard shouting from downstairs. His father, Thomas Doss, a World War I veteran struggling with alcoholism and trauma, was in a violent argument with his uncle. The fight escalated quickly. Desmond watched in horror as his father grabbed a gun. His mother, Bertha, threw herself between the two men. Young Desmond stood frozen, tears streaming down his face as he watched his mother desperately trying to prevent a tragedy. The police arrived just in time. His father was nearly arrested for attempted murder. That night, trembling in his bed, Desmond made a promise to God. He would never touch a gun. He would never kill another human being, no matter what. But destiny had other plans for Desmond Doss, plans that would test this promise in ways no one could imagine. The decision that everyone called crazy. 7th December 1941. Pearl Harbor was attacked. America entered World War II, and young men across the nation rushed to enlist. Desmond Doss, now 23 years old and working in a shipyard, had a draft deferment. He could have stayed home, safe and far from the war. But Desmond saw the injured soldiers returning home. He saw the need for medics, for healers, for those who would save lives rather than take them. His conscience wouldn't let him stay behind while others suffered. "I'm going to enlist," Desmond told his family. His father exploded with rage. "You're a fool. You'll be killed. They'll tear you apart." But Desmond was determined. He would serve his country, but as a medic, as a conscientious objector. He would save lives, not take them. He would never touch a weapon. On 1st April 1942, Desmond Doss enlisted in the United States Army. What awaited him was worse than any battlefield. Hell before the war. Fort Jackson, South Carolina. From the moment Desmond arrived at basic training, he became a target. The other soldiers saw him refuse to touch a rifle during weapons training. They watched him kneel beside his bunk every night to pray while they mocked him. They heard him refuse to work or train on Saturdays, his Sabbath day. "Coward," they shouted. "You're gonna get us all killed," others screamed. The harassment was relentless. Soldiers beat him in the middle of the night. They threw boots at him while he prayed. They made his life a living nightmare, trying to force him to quit. His commanding officers were no better. Captain Jack Glover called him into his office repeatedly. "Doss, you're a liability. You're endangering every man in this unit. Take the discharge. Go home." "Sir, I won't quit," Desmond replied calmly. "I'm here to serve." "You can't serve without a weapon, Private." "I can serve as a medic, sir. I can save lives." The army tried everything to force him out. They denied him leave. They court-martialed him for refusing to carry a weapon. They threatened him with prison time. But Desmond Doss wouldn't break. His case went higher and higher up the chain of command until finally, a letter arrived from the War Department. Desmond Doss had the right to serve as a non-combatant medic under the Conscientious Objector classification. He had won the battle at home. But the real war was just beginning. The 77th Infantry Division. Desmond was assigned to the 77th Infantry Division, B Company, 1st Battalion, 307th Infantry Regiment. They called themselves the Statue of Liberty Division. The men still didn't trust him. How could they? On the battlefield, Every soldier needed to be able to count on the man next to him. Desmond refused to carry a weapon. How could he protect anyone? But slowly, something began to change. During training exercises, when soldiers were wounded, Desmond was always the first to reach them. He treated their mock injuries with such care and skill that even the skeptics began to notice. In the Philippines, during the Battle of Leyte, Desmond proved himself for the first time under real fire. While bullets cracked overhead and explosions shook the ground, Desmond ran through enemy fire again and again, dragging wounded soldiers to safety. 4 men owed their lives to him that day. His fellow soldiers began to see him differently. This strange, quiet man who prayed every night and refused to kill, maybe he wasn't a coward after all. But the ultimate test was still to come. A place called Hacksaw Ridge. The 400-foot cliff of death. Okinawa, Japan. April 1945. The island of Okinawa was the last major obstacle before the invasion of mainland Japan. Whoever controlled Okinawa controlled the gateway to Japan itself. The Japanese knew this. They had fortified a massive cliff called the Maida Escarpment. The Americans would call it Hacksaw Ridge. It was a 400-foot vertical cliff face, honeycombed with caves, tunnels, and hidden artillery positions. The Japanese defenders had turned it into a fortress of death. On 29 April 1945, Desmond Doss and the 77th Infantry Division began their assault on Hacksaw Ridge. The soldiers climbed cargo nets thrown over the cliff face while Japanese machine gun fire tore through their ranks. Grenades and mortar shells rained down from above. Men screamed and fell, tumbling off the cliff to their deaths. Desmond climbed with his medical kit strapped to his back, his heart pounding, praying with every step. They reached the top. For a moment, they held their position. The ridge was a hellscape, dead bodies everywhere, the earth torn apart by explosions, the air thick with smoke and the screams of wounded men. And then the Japanese counterattack came. One more, Lord. Please, one more. The American forces were being slaughtered. Officers screamed the order to retreat. Soldiers ran for the cliff edge, scrambling down the cargo nets as fast as they could. But the wounded couldn't run. Dozens of men lay scattered across the ridge, bleeding, crying for help, waiting to die. Everyone was retreating. Everyone except Desmond Doss. While bullets whistled past his head and explosions threw dirt into his face, Desmond ran from wounded man to wounded man. He bandaged wounds, gave morphine, stopped bleeding, and then came the impossible part. He had to get them down the cliff. Desmond found a rope. Working alone, under constant enemy fire, he fashioned a special knot, a bowline, that would hold a man's weight. He wrapped the rope around the wounded soldier, dragged him to the cliff edge, and carefully lowered him down the 400-foot drop to the medics waiting below. Then he ran back for another. Dear Lord, he prayed as he worked, please help me get one more. He lowered another soldier down. One more, Lord. Please, one more. Another life saved. Just one more. And another. For 5 hours, Desmond Doss worked alone on top of Hacksaw Ridge. The Japanese army was less than 100 yards away. Snipers took shots at him. Grenades exploded around him. But somehow, impossibly, he wasn't hit. He moved like a man possessed, driven by something beyond human endurance. His hands were bleeding. His body was exhausted. But he wouldn't stop. One more, Lord. One more. The miracle of Hacksaw Ridge. By the time the sun set on 5th May 1945, Desmond Doss had single-handedly lowered 75 wounded soldiers down Hacksaw Ridge to safety. 75 men who would have died on that cliff went home to their families because one unarmed man refused to leave them behind. The men of the 77th Infantry Division, the same men who had once called him a coward, now refused to go back up Hacksaw Ridge without him. "We don't attack until Doss is with us," they told their commanding officers. "He's our lucky charm. God protects him." But Desmond's war wasn't over yet. The final prize. 2 weeks later, during another assault, Desmond was treating wounded soldiers when an enemy grenade landed next to him. The explosion tore into his legs, embedding 17 pieces of shrapnel into his body. He treated his own wounds, then waited 5 hours for a stretcher team to reach him. When they finally arrived and placed him on a stretcher, they came under sniper fire. Desmond rolled off the stretcher, giving it to a more critically wounded soldier. He crawled 300 yards to safety with a broken arm and shrapnel-riddled legs. During the crawl, a sniper's bullet shattered his left arm. Desmond used a rifle stock, the one weapon he'd never held in combat, as a splint for his broken arm. Even dying, even broken, Desmond Doss saved lives. The hero who never held a gun. 12th October 1945. The White House, Washington, D.C. President Harry S. Truman stood before a crowd of reporters and military officials. In front of him stood Corporal Desmond Doss, still recovering from his wounds. "This man," President Truman said, placing the Medal of Honor around Desmond's neck, "is living proof that you don't need to kill to be a hero." Desmond Doss became the first conscientious objector in American history to receive the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military decoration. The same officers who had tried to kick him out of the army now saluted him. The same soldiers who had beaten him and called him a coward now called him the bravest man they'd ever known. Desmond returned home to Virginia, married his sweetheart Dorothy, and lived a quiet life. He rarely spoke about the war. When people asked him how he survived Hacksaw Ridge, he would simply say, "God was with me." The legacy. Desmond Doss died on 23 March 2006 at the age of 87. At his funeral, dozens of elderly men attended, men whose lives he had saved on Hacksaw Ridge 60 years earlier. These men, now grandfathers, told their grandchildren about the soldier who wouldn't kill, the medic who wouldn't leave them behind, the man who proved that the greatest courage isn't found in taking lives, but in saving them. Desmond Doss's story reminds us that true strength doesn't come from weapons or violence. It comes from conviction, from faith, from an unshakable belief in doing what's right even when everyone says you are wrong. He was called a coward, but he was the bravest man on the battlefield. He refused to kill, but he saved more lives than most soldiers who carried guns. He stood alone against an army and won. The soldier who never held a gun became the hero nobody could forget. I just kept praying, "Lord, please help me get one more." Desmond Doss, Medal of Honor recipient.